Clerk will call the roll.
Glenn Whitley, County Judge.
Here.
Roy Charles Brooks, Commissioner Precinct 1.
Present.
Andy H. Wynn, Commissioner Precinct 2.
Here.
Gary Fickus, Commissioner Precinct 3.
Here.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner Precinct 4. Constitutes a quorum.
Thank you. Our invocation today will be delivered by Reverend Floyd Davison from the Northwest Baptist Church. After the invocation, please remain standing for our pledges. Thank you for being here today.
You're very welcome. Let's pray. Our Father, as we come to you today, we come with grateful hearts, Lord, for America. Thank you for the decency and order that you have put into this country for people who lead us. I pray your blessings across the board, Lord, from national level to local level, that you would help those in positions of leadership to make wise decisions. Father, I pray that our country would truly be blessed by you, would give us wisdom in these times that are so turbulent and we don't understand things that are going on in the world, but we're trusting you through all things. Bless those that will be making decisions today, Lord. Give them wisdom and leadership. Bless this court to your glory, we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Reverend, for coming out again today. Mr. Manius, agenda announcements.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, we have three announcements as it relates to the agenda this morning. The first one is under information technology, item 9F1. In the court communication, there was a date that was incorrect. When you look at the payment schedule, we indicated that the first payment would be in April 2014. It's simply 2015. So there was a minor mistake in the court communication. Also, members of the court, under public health, item 9G2, which is the data use agreement with Navarro Regional Hospital, we're going to ask that we hold that. We need to include a specific date that we're still working out with that hospital. And then finally, members of the court, if we can go to transportation services, this is item 9K1. We're going to ask that that item be held for 2 weeks, and we'll bring that back to the court at that time. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Court members, you have before you the minutes of our regular meeting of February 10th and our special call meeting of February 10th.
Move approval.
Second. We have a motion, a second, to approve the minutes of our regular meeting of February 10th and our special call meeting of February the 10th. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Under proclamations and resolutions, Commissioner Johnson is out today, but wanted us to recognize and to do a proclamation on the American Semifinals Rodeo Week. And I understand, I know Hub and Keith Ferguson and then Nate Krieger are here. Y'all come on forward and I'll read this into the record and then we'll come down and present it. Whereas in 1918, Cowtown Coliseum was the home of the first indoor rodeo as a part of the Southwestern Exposition and Fat Stock Show. And whereas, along with many other events throughout the year, Cowtown Coliseum continues to host rodeos every Friday and Saturday night. And whereas Cowtown Coliseum is proud to host RFD TV's The American Semifinals Rodeo, February 18th through 22nd, 2015, which has a payout of $450,000. And whereas cowboys and cowgirls from across the country and around the world will be competing with the hopes of qualifying for a spot in the world's richest one-day rodeo, RFD TV's The American Rodeo, which has a $2 million payout. And whereas this event marks another significant milestone in the rich history of the Cowtown Coliseum, now therefore be it resolved that we, the Commissioners Court of Tarrant County, do hereby proclaim February 18th through 22nd, 2015 as the American Semifinals Rodeo Week in Tarrant County. In witness whereof, we have herein to set our hands and cause the seal of Tarrant County to be affixed this 17th day of February 2015. I'll move its approval.
Second.
Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. We'll get a picture down here. We appreciate very much y'all being here today. I know Commissioner Johnson is upset at the fact that he's not here today. So,
He told me he was trying to get on the golf course down there in Austin, but it was a little bit cold.
well, if there's, let's come on out here in front of this. If he can find a golf course, he'll get on it. More, yeah, I think that's the key right there. He's not so much worried about that as he is the domino table.
One more picture with ours.
Okay. Y'all obviously heard about our photographers. Brought your camera. Y'all get up, somebody can come up here if y'all want to say something about this thing.
Okay. On behalf of RFD-TV, I wanted to extend our appreciation to Tarrant County and to the County Judge Whitley and to the commissioners for your warm welcome. These cowboys come from around the United States and around the world. We've got them coming from Canada. Hopefully we'll have one coming from Australia. They range in age from 12 to 70. Wow. And it's an exciting opportunity for them to come to the great city of Fort Worth and the Tarrant County. And we want to thank you for your warm and heartfelt welcome.
So 12 to 70, are they all riding bulls?
No.
I want to see this. I want to see this 70-year-old on the bull, because that could be you.
That's one of the exciting things about this rodeo is people have the opportunity to qualify from around the country in their own events, and the culmination of the last qualification for the American is here at Cowtown Coliseum.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Hub, I know J.D. would want me to tell you how much he appreciates everything you do for that area down on the north side.
He also told me to ask if you validate parking.
If you'll step right into my office over there, I bet you we can take care of that. That's what I like, shyness about people. We accepted that. You know, I would ask, and I know many of y'all may or may not be familiar with the fact that over the weekend, Ann's husband passed away, John Farmer. And so I would simply ask that we all keep Ann and her family in our prayers for the next several days. And just remember her, and hopefully she'll... I know that as a county family, we'll surround her with love and help her with anything that she needs. So we appreciate any prayers you can give to her. You now have before you the consent agenda.
Move for approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
We have approval of the consent agenda with the one item being held out that that GK mentioned earlier. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. We have a public hearing.
Morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Citizens have requested a speed limit on Scotland Avenue in Precinct 4. A site investigation revealed there was no posted speed limit, so we did a traffic study out there, and we've come to the following conclusion. Probably easier to look on your attachment there with the map, but we're recommending a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit between the City of Azle limit and Ryder Road intersection, and then we're requesting a 35-mile-an-hour speed limit from Ryder Road going north for a distance of approximately 1,350 feet before a curve that's in the roadway. And then from that point forward, we're requesting a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit from there to Ryder to Porter Drive, which is north of there.
This is a public hearing. I'll open the public hearing at this time and ask if there's anyone here wishing to speak to this matter. There appearing to be no one, then I'll close the public hearing and ask for any action.
Has Commissioner Johnson's office been notified and have they acquiesced?
Yes, sir. Talked with Pat Howell at Precinct 4.
Move approval.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Your Honor, members of the court, we have one additional item under our section. It's item A1. We're requesting that the court approve the posting of the county's intent to lease property at the Resource Connection to Cornerstone Assistance Network as relates to Texas Government Code Section 263.007.
Move approval, and for the court's information, this will be a permanent site for the reentry council in Tarrant County. Great step forward.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Brooks. Well, Ms. Tidwell.
We have two items for the court's consideration this morning. The first item is to receive and file the quarterly investment report for the period ending December 31st, 2014.
Move approval.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
And the second item is to receive and file the Tarrant County financial statements for the period ended, 3 months ended December 31st, 2014.
Move to receive and file.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Ms. Glenn.
Good morning. Receive and file the personnel agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to receive and file the personnel agenda. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Good morning, and thank you.
Good.
Just think of the extra steps you got there.
I know. I need them.
Chris.
Good morning, court members.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chris.
We have one item for the court's consideration this morning. It is requested that the Commissioners' Court approve the Tax Share Court Development Project revised and restated addendum to the 2013 Master Interlocal Agreement between Tarrant, Dallas, Travis, and the Porter counties through the Texas Conference of Urban Counties Tax Share Program.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, sir.
Your Honor, you don't have anything on the public health section of the agenda, but if I might make a few remarks, I would appreciate it.
Sure.
This past Saturday, Valentine's Day, we held a prostate cancer education and screening event at the Tarrant County Public Health Department. The day started with a presentation from our partners at the Moncrief Cancer Institute and Tarrant County Public Health. Also, we partnered with JPS Health Network and THR Harris Methodist Hospital, Fort Worth. We asked men who did not know their prostate status to come and learn and to make the decision about whether or not they wanted to be screened. We also asked women who love men who did not know about their prostate status to bring them. We had about 150 people attend that event on Saturday. And at the end of the day, we screened about 70 men. Now, we're still in the process of assessing the data from that event. And at the time that the report is completed, I'd like the opportunity to bring it and present it to this court. But our feeling is that out of 70 screenings, we're going to find some positives. And as a result of having found those positives early, we're going to save some lives. I just wanted to bring that up, give you a report on what went on, because you wouldn't know it if you were looking for it in the Star Telegram.
I won't say that. I'll stop right there. They buy ink by the barrels. Not near as many barrels as they used to buy, but
Truly.
they still buy it by the barrels. Thank you very much, Commissioner Brooks. I know you worked very closely with them on making that event possible, and I also know it has a special interest and a special.
And Shannon was point person and did an extraordinary job. Thank you, Shannon.
Come on forward. Where's Beecham hiding this week?
He is hiding. I didn't see him today. I don't know where he is. He'll probably show up, though, like he usually does.
Like a bad penny, they all show up.
He's celebrating President's Day in Arkansas.
So he went to the double wides?
Good morning.
Good morning.
We have two items for your consideration this morning. The first item is for our annual approval for the Health Department for the exemption from competitive bidding requirements for the purchase of drug reagents, controls, and proficiency testing materials.
We have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Our second item is for RFP number 2015-057. This is for professional investigative services of applicants for license and bondsmen in Tarrant County for the Sheriff's Department. We're requesting the award be made to Bearden investigative agency, that is, in the amount of $12,000.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Wynn, I believe you have a interlocal agreement.
Yes, Your Honor. I move for the approval of item 9L1, A, B, C, and D. A, B are two interlocal agreements with the City of Arlington, and C and D are the interlocal agreement with the City of Mansfield.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Commissioner Fickus.
Interlocal agreement with the City of Bedford.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Are there any appointments today? Being none, then you have before you the claims, including the addendum.
Move for the approval of the claims, including the addendum.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the claims, including the addendum. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Briefing items, Mr. Mays.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, we have two items we'd like to talk to you about this morning. We're going to take these out of order. We're going to move to the legislative issues first. In just a minute, I'm going to ask Casey Pipes to come forward, but I did want to mention a few things that are at the state level that Mr. Mendez has included in his memoranda. Basically, the Senate has historically used Senate Bill 1 as the budget bill, and they have changed that. Senate Bill 1 to during this session is the property tax relief bill, and Senate Bill 2 is the budget bill. As you know, we're going to be continually watching the activities of the legislature to ensure that they cause as little disruption as possible into counties and municipalities' efforts to manage their finances. Also wanted to point out that HB 7, which is on the House side, is a bill which would limit the legislature's continual use of a budget tool to not adequately appropriating dedicated funds in order to balance the state's budget. The state collects a lot of money that is for specific purposes, yet they don't allocate all of those monies. They keep them in bank in order to balance their budget. So these are all critical bills to us, and we'll be watching those along with the other information and the bill listings that Mr. Mendez has included in his memoranda. If there are any questions as it relates to the state efforts, I'll be more than happy to try to answer those. If not, we'll move to the federal. Yes, Commissioner.
I have a concern about some state legislators have taken the position of not talking to what they consider all lobbyists.
Yes.
I think we need to communicate to such senators and state representatives that, speaking from Tarrant County perspective, Mr. Mark Mendez is not really our lobbyist, quote unquote. Rather, he's there to provide insight to the inner working of county government. And if we need to be there with him, to have access to the offices of those state representatives and senators, they will be glad to do so. But we do have a county that we have to operate on a regular basis. That's why Mr. Mendez is there. So somehow, if we can constructively send a message via a letter or something, I think that would be more constructive and more helpful. What do you think?
I don't believe that he is. We serve as a resource for the legislators.
Is he viewed as a lobbyist?
He's viewed as a resource person.
You're referring to him maybe incorrectly.
Okay.
T.J. Patterson, a city
Yes.
employee, just like Mark is. This particular senator is, he's okay. It's when you go hire a lobbyist, pay them a fee to represent you, those are the ones I think he's talking about.
What we will do.
Mark is not considered a lobbyist.
At least at this time, I talked.
We need to clarify that.
Yeah, I talked with Mark last week when I saw this policy come from Senator Burton's office, and asked him if he had any clarification. And he indicated that he had been in her office many times, that he did not feel like, he was going to go by, I believe, this week and just verify that, but that he did not feel like that he was included in that, in those folks who would not be allowed to come into her office.
We asked Mark to go by and talk with the senator and also her staff, and for that exact purpose. We've always had a staff person that served as a resource to make sure that if there were any questions or we could provide any information. You know, I think some people may be surprised that whenever there is legislation filed, how many times we are asked, not just Mr. Mendez, but also the various departments that legislation might affect, and the Budget Office also, that we provide information to those legislators for that purpose. And Mr. Mendez has always acted as the conduit for that type of information. But we will definitely check, make sure that we're not shut out on that issue.
One of the things that I think we could do, and we're going to be in Austin next week, I know next Wednesday and Thursday, and I'm going to attempt to sit down with Senator Burton, if our schedules can work it out, and talk, because the other groups that really represent to help provide information as to the impact of potential legislation is the Texas Association of Counties, the Conference of Urban Counties. Those organizations, which we pay dues to, also represent us and are called on many times to provide information as to what the impact of a bill would be on county government. And so I hope that as she's looking at this and they're fine-tuning this policy, that she will also allow them to come into her office and to talk with her or her staff regarding the impact of certain proposed legislation on the county governments. So I agree with what you're saying. I think it may be working itself out.
We'll follow up to make sure that we have full access.
That is a bill pending as well, right? Banning lobbyists. That is a proposed legislation.
I believe there has been some legislation introduced, yes, sir.
So we need to make sure that we have that definition.
Sure, absolutely.
I've been sitting here trying to keep myself from weighing in on this issue because my weighing in may not be particularly helpful, but it will provide a different point of view. And that point of view is that it does no good to ban lobbyists for local government from one's office if one is going to continue to provide access to those lobbyists for special interests that have huge budgets, can take the legislator out to dinner or to a hunting lodge, or make huge political contributions, none of which lobbyists for local government are able to do. So if you want to make an impression, ban all lobbyists.
Thank you, Commissioner.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions?
Is it time for our lobbyists?
Yes, that was a great segue.
I hope you're not got any trips to Austin planned in the near future.
I prefer the word consultant, sir. Thank you all very much, Judge Whitley, members of the court, senior staff. It's great to be back and give you guys an update on our federal agenda. As you recall, in December, we came and reported to you after we had concluded our series of meetings with all the members of the court, and we outlined the series of priorities that we all agreed we wanted to work on in Washington. In the last 6 weeks since that time, we've been busy in Washington laying the foundation and the groundwork to begin pushing these throughout the session, and particularly with appropriations and the budget process coming up. So it's still very early in the legislative season in Washington, but we wanted to give you a little bit of a report on some of the things that are going on and show you how we're beginning on each of the priorities you all gave to us to work through them very systematically. So again, our overall strategy is to work through our congressional friends, use them to help us work both on legislation and with the agencies. Secondly, work closely with the agencies, working our own relationships and contacts. And then finally, build a coalition among all of our local delegation and other groups that are working on similar issues as ours. So the first priority, as you'll recall, was transportation. The budget and appropriation process has just begun. We have taken the initiative in visiting with all of our local members and their staffs, including both Senate offices, Cornyn and Cruz, and then Granger as an appropriator. Congressman Barton. Congressman Williams actually used to be on transportation authorization. He's just gone off. He's now on financial services, but he still has impeccable relationships in the Transportation Committee, Marchant, Burgess, and VC. And what we've said to them is, here are the issues we're going to be coming to you on. Here's the things that are important to the county. And we've begun dialogue with them on how we can pursue each of these. So the first issue, obviously, and many of you have asked about this privately, is the trust fund reauthorization. There was a hearing last week to begin the process. Secretary Fox came in and testified for 3 hours. There is some optimism this year that it's up in May, as you know. There is some optimism that there may be a slightly longer, or hopefully much longer, reauthorization this time. The reason for that, the changing dynamic this time is you now have a Republican Senate. And so the Republican House members are much more likely to pass something that's longer because they feel like they can trust the bill once it gets to the Senate. And Democrats are happy to join in as well because we all know that a longer reauthorization is better for everybody. So there is some optimism on that. We're going to work very closely on this issue with our friends at NACO. We've been in touch with Matt Chase, who's the executive director there, and other cities and municipalities that are lobbying on this as well. The second piece is sort of the appropriation process, which is in the very early stages. We have a series of highway projects that we're very interested in looking at during this session.
We're taking a two-pronged approach on this. Number one, we're going to work very closely with our friends at TxDOT. They are very influential in a way that much more so than we can be because they have a bigger voice, particularly with appropriators, especially looking at the size of the appropriation. They're very influential in saying this is the amount of money that we think is needed in our state and for these projects. So we're going to work very closely with them on that. Secondly, we are going to file individual requests for our projects. So we have sort of a macro strategy and a micro one as well. And the micro one will be us going to the committee, working through our delegation. A lot of it will be Congressman Vesey because a lot of these projects are in his district, and having specific paperwork filed with the appropriators that says these are some of the things that are important to our county. Now, I want to caution you all, this is a long game that we're playing here, but it's important to get on the agenda now. It's important to get on the radar now. I used to be a staff member for an appropriator, and the sooner people could get to me with their request, the better we could start filtering through them. So, I don't know that we're going to have funding right away for these projects, but we're going to start the process right away, and we're going to put them on notice that these things are important to us, and we'll be working with you all as we file the paperwork. The Western Tarrant County project is obviously a little more long-term. We're going to look at opportunities there. And then finally on TIFIA, we've got our eyes and ears open on that as well. On healthcare, we're working very closely with our friends at JPS. Obviously, there's a couple of issues there, one being the waiver will be up in about 18 months, so we'll work with the state on that as well and other friends and allies. There's also, Commissioner Wynn mentioned in his meetings with us, and Commissioner Brooks, the disproportionate share funding issue. We're going to be monitoring that very closely, working with Mr. Early and his team to urge CMS to take a look at that and give us some favorable consideration of that. MHMR and Associated Services, we're going to monitor legislation on that. The emergency response effort, that came up during our meetings. A lot of this stems from the Ebola crisis of last fall and some of the limits. I know Judge Whitley in particular was concerned about some of the HIPAA requirements that are placed on counties. We're going to take a close look at that at this session and see if there's any legislative opportunities to weigh in on that. And then finally, as you recall, we sort of have a third bucket of what we call administrative issues. These are largely grants and things that we can work and lobby the agencies directly. So on criminal justice, for example, we're going to look at grant possibilities there. We also, at Commissioner Brooks's request, have reached out to Congressman Alcee Hastings and Michael Burgess. They did legislation last session.
Yeah, I'm not sure they're going to be working too close together this year.
They're probably not after the Florida-Texas comments, but the good news is Senator Cornyn has introduced legislation. I think I put that in the clips about a week ago, which achieves the same thing. Again, whether they do the bill together or not, we want to put this on their agenda, that we support this and try to help them get co-sponsors. And
I would tell my friend Congressman Hastings that Texas may be crazy, but Florida's probably worse.
Can I quote you on that? So we are working on it, and there is movement, particularly on the Senate side.
I just want to be a fly on the wall when you go into Burgess's office and ask him to co-sponsor something with Hastings. He did that for me a long time ago.
No, I understand. But again, the Senate bill's already been filed, and that may well be the best vehicle. So we'll take a look at that. Public health, we're going to continue to look throughout the authorization and appropriation process, anything that might affect us funding-wise or regulatory-wise. Community development health block grants we'll watch, and then transportation, Debbie Fillmore and I have been in touch. We'll be pushing for any grants at our end that the county applies for. The passport issue, as you know, is one that has been a high priority to Commissioner Fickus. We have worked it at the regional level unsuccessfully, unfortunately. So now we're working it at the federal level, and Commissioner Fickus will be joining us in a few days, and we've got a couple of meetings set up on that with him. The road issue that Commissioner Johnson has us working on, we continue to track that down, and we've kept him apprised on that. And then the 911 issue is a regulatory issue Commissioner Wynn brought to our attention. It's a discrepancy in the way whether you can call or text 911 in the way the FCC treats those, and we have an inquiry into them to find out what can be done about that. So this is sort of stage one. We've gone to the local delegation. We've gone to our senators. We've contacted our relationships with the agencies. We've let them know what we're going to be working on. and that we're going to be back to them. Now we begin doing meetings with you all. Commissioner Brooks is coming up in March. Commissioner Fickus and Judge Whitley are coming up in a couple of days, and I think Commissioner Wynn in June. And so that'll help us as well as we continue to kind of push on these issues. And really the appropriation stuff will be kind of the next priority, and we'll be reaching out to you guys specifically on that as we get closer to filing paperwork on those. So that's a very broad view of what's going on. We've been pretty active, although, as I said, it's still very early. And we'll continue to be active and keep you updated. Any questions I can answer at this point?
Good job.
Thank you, sir.
I do have one comment on the emergency response efforts.
Yes, sir.
There's also legislation that's moving through the Texas legislature as it deals. There were some issues that we ran into when we dealt with Ebola as far as notification of first responders so that they were fully aware of what might be at a residence if they had to make that call. And there is legislation moving through the Texas legislature that may help that also. We'll keep you. We'll do a link for you and make sure that you're aware of that.
That'd be great. Thank you all very much.
Thanks, Case.
Members, we go to item A. This is an update on the hospital district. It's their monthly update. Mr. Early is here to address the court at this time.
Good morning.
Good morning. Morning, Judge. Morning, Commissioners. Following Casey, I do want to tell the court and the public I do appreciate working with Casey and Scott. They're professional. I like the approach that they take to the political arena, and that oftentimes is communicating with staff members to bureaucratic members, those type things, and working with the agencies. We all like going to senators' offices and congressmen's offices, and we appreciate that very much, but the work that they've been able to show us that they can do with the bureaucratic agencies is hugely important to us, and certainly working with CMS, which is such a large agency. I just appreciate the way Casey and Scott have approached the issue with us. So very, very thankful for that. The other thing I wanted to bring to y'all's attention, because I will always bring it to your attention, is certainly the efforts that you all as a court have done, particularly Commissioner Brooks in the area of the homeless population throughout Tarrant County, and the largest population and the epicenter of the homeless population being in Fort Worth. Our efforts to work with the Fort Worth Foundation and particularly Ted Blevins and others to make sure that we have that clinic as soon as we can, and I'm pleased by the progress that's being made there so that we can look at that epicenter for care. You really should deal with the homeless in two manners. You can deal with it in any way you want, but your humanitarian side to help people who are obviously less fortunate than us and have a challenge in their life, certainly that should appeal to your mind and your heart. But if that does not appeal to you, it may appeal to you the huge cost of somebody that is coming to a public hospital, released, and go right back to the street and coming back to the public hospital. If you don't have an intervention of prevention, and if you don't have that early in the upstream of their health care delivery, then the cost to the taxpayers is going to continue to escalate. And you're going to continue to see large numbers in your emergency room unless you address that issue. So we address it on two. We address it from the heart and we address it from the mind. But I am pleased with how things are going with that effort, and the efforts that you as a court have done, the efforts that a foundation has done, because without the help of that foundation, we would not be able to afford what is needed for the physical structure of that. The board at its last meeting approved the audit report for the fiscal year ending in September 30th, 2014. It's the BKD report. We will be getting that to you. You as commissioners can read through that, look through that. There were no findings. It was a clean audit. They had complimentary words about what we were doing and how we were doing it. So very pleased by that. Again, we're working with Mr. Manius's office to get that in the right form, to get that to you all for your perusal and your debate and your discussion as well. We received an award from the Texas Hospital Association. It's a rather large award, and I think the reason that I want to bring it to your attention is not for necessarily how great JPS is, but I'm always happy to say that, but it's really the fact of what we did. We have 4,000 patients in one of our more high-risk categories, and it's our mental and behavioral patients. we have a really hard time dealing with readmissions from that population. For not taking their medication, not being good at coming and dealing with what they need to outside of the hospital setting, and then coming in serious conditions coming into the hospital. We reduced that readmission rate by almost 12%. We went from a high readmission of that 3,800 or 4,000 folks, a high of 16% readmission. We got it down to 5%, and we've maintained that 5% for the last year. And it is good on two grounds, very similar to the homeless population, Commissioner, and that is you're caring for a population that needs an incredible, delicate hand of care, your mental and your behavioral patients. Secondly, what we've done is put a good many caseworkers with them to try to get them in transitional programs throughout JPS and in the community, so you don't just see them back in the emergency room. So from a taxpayer standpoint, it's very, very smart as well. So I was very pleased that the Texas Hospital Association recognized JPS for its efforts. We did not necessarily solicit that. They found us and said, we like what you're doing with your program. So I'm really pleased with that.
I would point out that the other economic part of that argument is that we get dinged on our reimbursements for
readmission rates.
For high readmission rates, so we have improved our financial status.
We have, and
we've done well and good at
yes,
the
sir.
same time.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Particularly with that very challenging population. That's a tough population to deal with. I do want to comment on Commissioner Brooks's efforts on Valentine's Day for prostate cancer awareness. As he mentioned, I think Shannon and the team who worked a lot with the team at JPS we're expecting a little less of a turnout, and the fact that they got 150 people is amazing. The fact that you had 60 people tested for prostate cancer, 60 to 70 folks that we tested. And as Commissioner Brooks mentioned, that's an early prevention and an early detection, and I guarantee you lives will be saved. And to do that is a great effort on your part, but it means a lot. You cannot, we tend to want to think in our community that you can just advertise things. You just put up a billboard and tell people their blood pressure is high or you need to get your prostate checked or whatever the case may be. That's not what works, quite frankly. What works is availability, access to clinics, access to testing, and get them in. And going to the smartest thing that Commissioner Brooks did, which we all as men know, and that is if you want to get anything done, you go through women. And he went to the women of the household and said, you need to get your husbands and your loved ones in to be tested on Valentine's Day, give yourself a gift, and keep this husband of yours around. And that was the smartest effort, because if we just went to the men, we would have had 10 people show up. So he did a wonderful job, and I compliment him on that, and that was good. And Shannon and the team over there did great. But also, Vinny Tenasia. I think that what is starting to be seen at the Public Health Department under Vinny's leadership is a strong leadership. I appreciate the way he works with us, and I think it's working quite well. Vinny and I got to talking before this meeting, and we're going to invite Vinny and his team by for lunch at JPS. We have bendable straws and yellow Jell-O awaiting him, and we're going to have them come by and spend some time with us at JPS, take a tour of JPS, see some things that he may be unaware of, because unfortunately he came into the worst situation you can come into when he first arrived, dealing with the harsh reality of the conditions that we were dealing with Ebola and everything else. He mastered that and got through that, and now it's time to start working on some projects and collaboration between the two, since that is sort of what we want to do, is create more collaborations with all and everybody in between.
Well,
So
I want to thank you for your participation and for JPS's participation on Saturday. JPS had, 16 nurses
Yes, sir.
there doing
Yes, sir.
the counseling and the blood draws. An incredible act of service to the community. And the second thing I want to say is that Vinny Tenaja is becoming a rock star around here. He is a very effective communicator of health issues and a very effective manager of the Public Health Department. We are so fortunate that we hired the right guy.
I would agree with that 100%.
Well, and you got him out of Detroit. That's a blessing, too, so good for that.
I mean,
That
really,
didn't take much.
I mean, it's a win-win.
Should have really been paying us to come down here.
I understand. I understand. Thank you all. Thank you very much. I appreciate your ability to allow me to be here and go through my report, and appreciate your concern for JPS and our patients at all times, in all forms. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? What is the timeline on the clinic there in that homeless, down the Lancaster area?
Well, it took, from the architectural designs, took a little bit longer. They were a little bit, I shouldn't say slower, because I don't understand that process for architectural designs, but we've got groundbreaking, and we hope within, obviously, this fiscal year that we'll be able to see that brick and mortar up. And we're ready from a staffing standpoint. You know, we've moved our clinic and temporarily set up things, so we're ready on our end. When that place opens, we'll be ready to receive patients immediately.
So just like a good politician, when do you think you're going to move in?
Well, the reason, it's not so much the good politician part of it is I'm not in control of that. So I can't tell you exactly when that is, because it's up to the foundation and their team to be out there doing that. So I can't give you a specific answer to say on
you don't know.
June. It's what they've told us it will be within the next 3 to 4 months. But
it's groundbreaking.
Yes, Mr. Manius.
The comment you need to make is, let us check on that and get back with you.
Well, I don't leave yet.
But
let me check on that. I'll get right back to you.
On the clinic,
Yes, sir.
JPS and MHMR have done the proper thing in aligning their services in that community and co-locating their services to serve the entire continuum of both physical health care and mental health care in one location, because by and large, you only get one shot. And the whole person needs to be treated. So that's in preparation of opening of the clinic, and that's a good step.
It's a bit of a digression, but one of the things that I serve on is the Meadows Foundation Mental Health Institute policy. And one of the things that we're doing there is we're starting to come up with some statistics and showing that at 14 years old, we're already seeing children with mental and behavioral issues at that stage. When we don't intervene at that level, that 14-year-old becomes an 18-year-old inmate in our penal system. The 24 and 25-year-old and the 30-year-old becomes a homeless individual, becomes a mental patient that's within the community confines. We're not catching some of those people. I know, not to your question, but I really feel strongly that if you have the right intervention from a community standpoint, from a prison standpoint, from a crime standpoint, from the welfare of the human standpoint, this will make a big difference in Tarrant County. And if we can then take that effort and work with the state in trying to look at an adolescent program for mental and behavioral health for those juveniles that are into the criminal justice program, and we can particularly put a brick and mortar facility in Tarrant County, we will go a long way for our community, but a long way for the state. And that's what our hope is. And we're going to try real hard to do that. We'll keep you up to date with that.
While the judge still has you a little bit on the ropes,
Yes.
can I ask you about project over in the eastern part of Mount?
Yes, sir. I'm happy to answer that. What we've done is we have a contract that I think is it's final pending with Chesapeake on a purchase of property in the Northeast for the expansion of a clinic facility in the Northeast that will be a model very similar to what we did in your precinct, Commissioner Wynn. And it'll look more like the medical home model that we have, and we'll be looking at that. And we've been working with Commissioner Fickus. So we are in the midst of purchasing that property. It's been approved by our board, and the final contract work should be presented. It's a real estate situation, so obviously it will be coming back to this court, and I believe it will come to you within the next month. Yes, sir.
You mentioned earlier about the homeless coming in and then being released back to the streets. If you have someone who comes into the hospital, is there for, a week or two with an illness or with some medical concern that actually, when they leave there, they still are in need of care, what happens? Do we have some place do you keep them there longer, or is there a step-off?
No, we're trying to find those step-offs. That's what we're trying to do, is that's the district program that we have to work with in finding transitions of care. Working with the homeless shelters, for one, and trying to find the kind of care, but also working with the homeless shelters in medication that is needed. Homeless shelters are a really hard place, obviously, to put medications. Yeah. But to try to get the caseworkers to help them stay on the medications they need, the wound vacs that they need.
Mr. Shugart? Come on back in. I know you heard that. I see you peeking back. Maybe not. If I could just, in case you were getting ready to leave, I just would like to talk with you a little bit after court, if you don't mind.
Yes, sir. So, yes, the transitions of care is the key to it. Finding them institutions within the community, but JPS is not the right place for them. JPS is not the place to hold them longer, because all you're doing is backlogging your intensive care or backlogging your emergency department, and then you have a boarding issue, and then you have the cycle that JPS had historically been in of longer wait times. The key is to move those patients and get them into care transitions, and that's what we're working on. And that's why I'm such a fan of the 1115 waiver, because they support projects like that reduce readmissions, and they pay you to do that, as opposed to just giving you blank money and say, do as you wish. They base it on an outcome. You hit your outcomes, you get your money. And that's what some of our district projects are doing in the homeless areas.
Okay.
Any other questions y'all have? Great. Thank you all very much. Appreciate your time. Thank you. Thank you for the counsel, Mr. Manius.
Your Honor, that's all we have at this time.
Then we will recess our open meeting and proceed to close to discuss items exempted under sections 551.071, 072, 074, 076, and 087 of the Texas Government